Some stories are just bigger than others. They're so powerful, so fundamental, that they don't just get told once. They actually become the blueprint, the very lens we use to understand everything that comes after. And today, we're going to look at one of the biggest master stories of all time.
So just take a second and think about this. For an entire group of people, what single event could possibly be so huge that it shapes their identity, their hopes, their entire view of the world for literally thousands of years?
For ancient Israel, there was no contest. The answer was the Exodus. This wasn't just another chapter in their history book. This was page 1. The great rescue from slavery in Egypt, that was the story that told them who they were and who their God was. It was their origin story, period.
All right, so to really get how this story gets a sequel, a new Exodus, in the New Testament, we've got to go back to the original. We need to lock in that foundational blueprint first.
And here it is, broken down nice and simple. It's basically a 4-part journey, right? You start with brutal slavery in Egypt. Then, bam, a divine rescue kicks off with a sacrifice, the Passover lamb. That leads to this totally miraculous escape right through the waters of the Red Sea. And finally, there's the long trek toward a new home, the Promised Land. Just lock that pattern in your head: slavery, sacrifice, crossing, and journey. It's going to be important. But here's where it gets really interesting. The story didn't just get put on a shelf. Centuries later, when Israel was in trouble again, this time in exile, their own prophets, guys like Isaiah, started talking about another rescue that was coming. And guess what language they used? A new Exodus, a greater salvation that would follow that same legendary pattern. They were basically predicting the sequel, setting the stage for everything the New Testament writers were about to say. So let's fast forward to the Gospels, because this is where that theme just explodes. The writers are constantly, and I mean constantly, showing us that Jesus isn't just some teacher. He's a new Moses. He is the one leading this long-awaited new Exodus. Check out this parallel in the Gospel of John, for instance. Remember how the Israelites got that miracle bread from the sky called manna when they were in the desert? Well, John puts that front and center when he records Jesus saying, "I am the bread of life." You see what he's doing? The message is so clear that physical bread was just a teaser for the real spiritual nourishment that's here now. And then there's the sacrifice part. This is huge. Jesus shares his last meal during the Passover festival. That's not a coincidence. That's the one celebration that remembers the original Exodus. So when he takes the bread and wine and says this is his body and blood, he's making this unbelievable statement. He's saying the old Passover lamb story is finding its ultimate meaning right here, right now. A new sacrifice is here, and it's about to kick off a whole new kind of freedom. Okay, now let's switch gears to the Apostle Paul. Because for Paul, the Exodus isn't just some nice background imagery. Oh no, it is the absolute core of how he explains what salvation even is. Think about one of Paul's go-to words for salvation: redemption. What's that even mean? Well, at its root, it's a word straight from the slave market. It literally means to be bought back, to be set free from bondage. The whole idea of the Exodus is baked right into the DNA of the word itself. And this chart just lays out Paul's thinking so perfectly. He takes that original pattern and just blows it up to a universal scale. The enemy isn't a country like Egypt anymore. It's the spiritual power of sin. The rescue isn't about creating one nation. It's about adopting individuals as sons and daughters, as heirs. And the guide isn't a pillar of fire in the sky. It's the very Spirit of God leading his people. I mean, he says it about as plainly as you can in his letter to the Galatians. Paul's whole point is that salvation is this radical change of identity. You go from being a slave, trapped, to being a child who inherits everything. It's the Exodus story, but now it's for you, me, for everyone. And then, just in case anyone missed it, Paul drops all the metaphors and just says it flat out. Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. For him, Jesus' death wasn't just a tragic event. It was the Passover event that kicks off the ultimate freedom ride out of slavery. So if the Gospels get the story started, and Paul builds out the meaning, then you get to the book of Revelation. This is where the Exodus theme goes supernova. It's the grand, cosmic finale. When you read through the judgments in Revelation, the callbacks are impossible to miss.
The seas turning to blood, darkness crashing down on the kingdom of the beast, hail and fire. It's like the greatest hits of the plagues from Exodus, just dialed up to 11 and aimed at all cosmic evil.
And then you get this unbelievable scene. After they're delivered, you see God's people standing beside a symbolic sea, a sea of glass this time, just like the Israelites did at the Red Sea. And what are they singing? The Song of Moses, the original victory chant, but it's mixed with the Song of the Lamb. The old and new Exodus stories are literally woven together into one massive celebration.
But the real mic drop moment is this quiet, stunning line from the very end of the book. And there was no longer any sea. Think about that. In the first Exodus, the sea, this symbol of chaos and death, was parted for them to escape. But in the final Promised Land, that ultimate barrier isn't just parted, it's gone. The threat isn't just defeated, it's completely erased from existence. Forever. So what does this all mean? Why does this matter? Well, once you see the New Testament through this Exodus lens, it kind of changes everything, doesn't it? Salvation stops being just a simple legal transaction and becomes this grand, epic story of liberation, a journey from slavery to sonship, from wandering in the wilderness to arriving at a final perfect home. And it suggests this great rescue story. It isn't just about what happens when we die. It's about a freedom that's supposed to start right here, right now.